Hello everyone, welcome to MPPSCADDA. I welcome you all to the today's class, and today's class is the third class in the series of our topic, that is our thinker, as you can see on the screen, which is Socrates, right? So यहाँ पे बहुत ही important sessions हम conduct कर रहे हैं, that is regarding our thinker Socrates, which is a part of our syllabus in paper 4 unit 1. So we have already discussed some of the dimensions of this topic, right? And those dimensions are: number one is the Socratic introduction. Who was Socrates? What you can write in 2 marker about him. And next, what was Socratic problem? So we divided our whole study into 4 dimensions, right? So Socratic problem, Socratic epistemology, Socratic method, and Socratic ethics. So 4 dimensions I have just pointed out in front of you. So we have already covered Socratic problem, means what was he trying to solve. That was the first thing we have covered. In the previous class, we have covered about the Socratic epistemology, means what was the whole structure, right? What was the whole structure regarding his philosophy, how he structured the complete knowledge, all his terms in a well connected web of concepts, so that all the ideology, all complete philosophy can be transmitted to someone else. And all this has been done with the help of the Republic, written by the Plato. We have already discussed about the method of Socrates, under which we have discussed in the previous class about the dialectic method as well as the midwifery method. But as you can see in the previous year questions, MPPSC is more concerned about his ethics in the previous few years, and MPPSC is asking 11-marker question again from the Socratic ethics, 2-marker questions again from the Socratic ethics. And those questions are directly linked with the term, as you can see on the screen, that is virtue and knowledge. राइट तो क्या है हमारे जो मेन टॉपिक्स हैं वो हैं वर्च्यू एंड नॉलेज. सो क्वेश्चंस आर मोर और लेस revolving around these two terms in the mains examination, and whether it is a 2 marker or a 11 marker. ठीक है, आप सबको पता है कि the scheme of the examination says in the paper 4 there will be 16 2-marker questions, then 8 7-marker questions, and then the 11-marker questions will be there instead of the 10-marker questions. In both the parts there will be one case study also based on the content of the syllabus, right? So today's class is the most important class from the exam point of view, but the previous classes were important for giving the foundation for this class, right? So let's start with the topic today, that is the Socratic ethics, right? So step by step we will move forward, and how you can approach the answer writing in the examination will be cleared after this class. So first thing in the Socratic ethics is linking knowledge to virtue. This is the first thing. Socrates believed in that once you arrive at the knowledge based on your own reasoning, then that knowledge he has termed as the wisdom. Means you are bound to convert it into action. So bound to convert it into action, because wisdom causes what? Internal transformation. That you must understand. Wisdom causes internal transformation, and that's why Socrates says कि knowledge which has been arrived by inductive reasoning in a well reasoned format with the help of concepts is bound to change a human being, and he will definitely act on that, because he realizes that the goodness and his well-being and his happiness is 100% dependent on that. And what is the definition of virtue? Virtue is the basic propensity of man. That can be a 2-marker question in the coming year. That what is virtue according to Socrates? Right. Virtue in general, what we call that is the good action, or the action of goodness. Sometimes you say that a person is of good character, means the person is virtuous. So character is the summation of all the impressions which are formed by the actions. So when you do what is ethically right, you are termed as virtuous. Means you do what is ethically right. Means the virtuous is more concerned with the action part. ये बात ध्यान देंगे आप. So virtue is more concerned with the action part. So I'm just briefing you the fundamental system of knowledge within the Socratic ethics is that when you act on the ethical lines, you will be called as virtuous. And virtuous action tabhi possible hai when you have the wisdom or we have the knowledge. So wisdom word is not much used by the Socrates, knowledge word is used by the Socrates. So yaad rakhiyega one more point, the knowledge of Socrates is equal to the wisdom. That is the part of epistemology. ठीक है, अब आप बोलेंगे सर आपने बार बार ये वर्ड्स को यूज कर दिया, कुछ समझ में नहीं आया सर, व्हाट यू एग्जैक्टली मीन? व्हाट आई एग्जैक्टली मीन इज दैट द विजडम एंड नॉलेज हैज बीन यूज्ड बाय द डिफरेंट फिलोसोफर्स interchangeably, right? In general, what happens in the hierarchy of philosophical terms, one is information. When that information is organized rationally, we call it as knowledge. When that knowledge is applied and the experience is gained, the practical knowledge, we call it as wisdom. These are the three hierarchies in which the mental processing occurs or the humans evolve. But Socrates is not concerned with this information or simply reasoned information. He is saying that the reasoned knowledge in itself is the wisdom or the knowledge, which is formed by concepts we have seen in the previous class. तो wisdom word को हम साइड में रखेंगे, हम knowledge word को ही wisdom समझते हुए आगे बढ़ेंगे, और यही सबसे बड़ा सीक्रेट है सॉक्रेटिस के क्वेश्चंस को आंसर करने में. बिकॉज वी ऑल नो दैट अगर हम आगे प्लेटो देखेंगे, एरिस्टोटल देखेंगे, वी इन ऑल द कंसेप्ट्स until and unless you become wise or the wisdom comes in your inner conscience, you don't become courageous, because wisdom leads to courage, courage leads to perseverance, and perseverance means the commitment plus dedication. And then after perseverance only you will be doing justice to the society or to yourself. Some of the things may not be clear to you in the first instance because it's the first philosopher I'm teaching you, but in the coming classes everything will be clear. So important point, wisdom of Socrates equals to knowledge of Socrates. But if you are getting this one line, then it will be okay to understand further, right? So what Socrates is saying, that the Socratic ethics is principally concerned with the individual, that we already know, right? Because his goal was to know yourself. From where he made this vision or the goal of human being, from the Delphic inscription. कहाँ से किया था? Delphic inscription से उन्होंने इस आइडिया को somehow inspire होके borrow किया, अपनी लाइफ में उसको adapt किया, and he worked accordingly. Right? Next point, virtues. All good things are connected with knowledge. So what he is saying, that good things are only possible when the knowledge of the good is there. And it is very obvious. This is very basic and very obvious for all of us. What he is saying, that कि आपका good action तभी possible है जब आपके पास good का knowledge हो based on reason. Knowledge of good is not there and still you are doing good, ये तो possible ही नहीं है. This is not at all possible. And that's what he is saying here. I will just tell you the good actions. What are the three things that Socratic ethics is concerned with? One is the individual, that is the man whose goal is to know yourself. Second thing is the virtues. All good things are connected with knowledge. Without knowledge, there cannot be any goodness. Or the same sentence you need to elaborate in the 11 marker, that without knowledge, no good thing exists. There is no goodness without the knowledge of the good. They can never be separated. And that's why the question which comes in your mains examination is, virtue is knowledge, explain or discuss according to Socrates. That was the question we have discussed in the previous class, has been asked by the MPPSC in 11 marker question. So what I'm saying is that virtue is knowledge means he is establishing a very good connection, that the good action is connected with good knowledge of the good or good knowledge, whatever you say, both are correct. So without goodness, knowledge of the goodness or knowledge of the good, there is no good action. Again and again, I'm saying the same thing just to so that this knowledge enters into your mind, seep into your mind, permeate into your whole soul, mind and body. What exactly Socratic ethics is all about. So this is the main fundamental concept where MPPSC is focusing a lot. Next point, Socratic ethics and virtue. The core of Socratic ethics is the concept of virtue, that is good thing, good action. That's what I just discussed, that virtue means good action. And more you do good action, more goodness will come in you, more good character will be of you. That is the whole meaning, right? So virtue, according to Socrates, is the deepest and the most basic propensity of man. Deepest and the most basic propensity of man. What does it mean? It means that men inherently want happiness, men inherently want goodness in life. And inherently want goodness in life means inherently wants to do good actions, because it reveals his true nature, and it helps in what? In knowing yourself. In knowing yourself. The way I am talking to you must be there in your mind. That should be your knowledge structure if you want to write such kind of 11 marker answer. Otherwise, if you think that you are going to throw some tits and bits, some words in the 11 marker, in the 2 pages which you are going to get for the 11 marker question, so you are not able to communicate well with the examiner and you will not get the marks, right? So the way I am communicating with you must become your language also. That's why I'm working hard on that, right? So this virtue is knowledge. So what he is saying, again, very very important point. What he is saying that this virtue is knowledge, right? So as you can see on the screen, I am just simply highlighting that if there exists any good, if there exists any good thing different and not associated with knowledge, virtue will not necessarily be any form of knowledge. What does it mean? He is simply saying that if there is any good thing, means any virtue which is not associated with knowledge, agar kahin aisa hai, these are the words of the Socrates, अगर कहीं ऐसा है कि वर्च्यू यानी गुड थिंग या गुड एक्शन नॉलेज से एसोसिएटेड नहीं है, इन दैट केस वर्च्यू और नॉलेज एक दूसरे के फॉर्म नहीं हो सकते, एक दूसरे से कनेक्टेड नहीं हो सकते। बात सर बिल्कुल सिंपल है, मैं थोड़ा हिंदी में भी एक्सप्लेन कर रहा हूं सो दैट इस आइडिया को आप समझिए व्हाट ही वाज सेइंग इन 400 बीसी। लेकिन सॉक्रेटिस फिर एक बात और बोलते हैं, सॉक्रेटिस बोलते हैं on the other hand, knowledge embraces everything that is good, and we shall be right to suspect that the virtue is knowledge. We shall be right to suspect that the virtue is knowledge. इस बात को समझने की कोशिश करिए। On the other hand, what he is saying that वर्च्यू और नॉलेज कनेक्टेड है, इसलिए हमें इंक्वायर करना चाहिए इस स्टेटमेंट को डेट वर्च्यू इज नॉलेज। देयर इज नो लिबरेशन, देयर इज नो knowing yourself without the virtue or and without the knowledge, right? So again and again I am repeating the same word, maybe it can cause headache in your mind कि सर बार बार आप नॉलेज क्यों बोल रहे हैं, बिकॉज दैट्स हिज फंडामेंटल प्रीमाइस and he has never used the word wisdom in term of knowledge, in replacing the term knowledge, right? So if virtue is knowledge, it can be known and consequently taught, right? So अगर वर्च्यू नॉलेज है तो ऑब्वियसली उसे जाना जा सकता है और उसे पढ़ाया या सिखाया भी जा सकता है कि कैसे उस नॉलेज तक हम अराइव करें। and this is the meaning of the imperative know yourself. that means अगर सॉक्रेटिस ने कोई डेल्फिक इंस्क्रिप्शन में पढ़ लिया कि know yourself, that means that inscription in itself is saying that knowledge can be taught, you can also arrive at that knowledge. It is only not my individual property, I don't have any authority over the knowledge, only you can also arrive at it. So if you can arrive at it, you can also become virtuous, and once you all become virtuous, you can again know yourself. So there is a hierarchy. सर किस तरह की hierarchy की आप बात कर रहे हैं? यहाँ पे hierarchy देखेंगे, बहुत ध्यान से समझेंगे। knowledge of good, इसको अपनी कॉपी में नोट डाउन भी करेंगे। the knowledge of good will lead to virtues. यहां तक तो सर कहानी समझ में आ रही है, यहां तक बिल्कुल कहानी क्लियर है, क्योंकि वर्च्यूज आर गुड एक्शंस आर ओनली पॉसिबल इफ यू हैव द नॉलेज ऑफ द गुड। यहां तक बिल्कुल कहानी क्लियर है सर, कोई डाउट नहीं हो रहा। तो सर फिर नेक्स्ट स्टेप क्या है? वंस यू बिकम वर्चुअस यू विल नो योरसेल्फ, which is the ultimate goal, you will know yourself. So ultimately These are the three steps on which Socrates is putting so much stress. So that's why he's saying the next line, through knowledge, man gains possession of himself, whereby he becomes his own master. So ultimately, through the knowledge, he becomes his own master. क्या बनने वाले हैं आप? अपने master बन जाएंगे, and your mind will be in your control. And your mind will be in your control. This is the ultimate aspect that where Socrates has reached. And in the previous class also I have told you, and that's why he was so happy at the time of his death, that I have nothing left to inquire about. My life is very much complete, fulfilled, because I have mastered myself. How? By knowing myself. How? By developing virtues. How? By developing or reasoned the reasoning of the, by well inductive reason of the knowledge of the good. So the whole chronology I have just put in front of you in a very lucid manner. Because whenever you read about this concept, it's very confusing, right? And it is my duty to put in it in a very simplistic manner in front of you, what exactly this philosopher is trying to say through his words. And so many of his ideas were organized by Plato, because he was very much comfortable and confident, and people used to go to him that, Socrates sir, please guide me. He was not very much interested in teaching. I told you, he was not, he himself proclaimed that he is not a teacher, he was never a teacher. And then he said that, okay, if you want to learn something, I will just guide you, because I am the believer of the dialectic method, I am the believer of the midwifery method. I will just provide some tools to you, rest everything you have to do. So he was not at all also concerned about sounding very organized in his thought process. So all this hard work has been done by the Plato, his disciple, so that he can bring his ideas in a very organized fashion in the book Republic and in front of the world. Right? So what is the next thing we must understand? So first thing we have understand that the three aspects, that is individual is important, what is virtue, what is knowledge, and virtue and knowledge can never be separated. That's what we have understood so far. We have also understood that once, if the virtue is knowledge, it can be known and consequently taught. Write this dimension 100% in the examination. ये बात जरूर लिखिएगा. If the virtue is knowledge, it can be known and consequently taught. And this is the meaning of the imperative, know yourself. Right? And through knowledge, man gains possession of himself, whereby he becomes his own master. He becomes his own master. Right? So what are the core principles we will write? Let's see. So right now I've just given you some kind of chronology of ideas. Now I'm going to define the core concept according to the two markers. Suppose a two marker question comes in the examination. What is virtue according to Socrates? What you will write? Virtue is the highest aim and the greatest good one has to seek in life. That's what we have learned above, that it is a basic propensity of humans, right? And this is the highest or the greatest good one can seek in his life, because this will ultimately lead to what goal? That know yourself. If it is to be the highest aim and the greatest good, it must have the universal consistent and be the same of all. Again going to the same thing, class first, that is universal validity of knowledge, Socratic problem. Universal validity of knowledge. Universal validity of knowledge, that was his ultimate aim. So that means the virtues are also universally valid, the good actions are also universally valid, the goodness is also universally valid. Right? Now what is universally consistent and the same for all is knowledge? If virtue is knowledge, then the knowledge must also be universally consistent. Right? So he is simply saying that virtue is the highest aim, greatest good one can seek in life. If it is the highest aim, then it must be universally consistent and universally valid for all. Right? And if something is universally valid, then it must be knowledge, because knowledge only can be universally valid based on inductive reasoning, which is also available to every human being. That faculty is available in every human's mind. Right? So एक तरह से अगर आप ध्यान देंगे, तो what he is saying that, what he is trying to explain that virtue, what he is trying to explain, virtue कैसा है, यूनिवर्सली वैलिड। तो यूनिवर्सल वैलिड चीजें क्या होती हैं, नॉलेज। तो अल्टीमेटली ही इज सेइंग वर्च्यू इज नॉलेज. So he's trying to applying the logic like this. So that is what you need to write. So above section, what I have told you is more related to the understanding. Now what I am telling you is more related to what you need to write in the examination, right? So 2 marker question, virtue I have just dealt with. Now the knowledge part. What is knowledge according to Socrates? So knowledge is obtained through concept that we have learned in the previous class when I was teaching you about the epistemology. So and knowledge can only be defined with the help of the concepts. And concepts, how we form the concepts? By the use of the reason, which is common in all. Just now I have explained it, which is available to all in his in the every human's mind. So concepts are already in human mind. ये भी हमने कब पढ़ा था, जब हमने ये देखा था epistemology में कि the concept and the ideas are already present in human mind, but it is in what state? It is in dormant state. तो हमें इसे कैसे रिकॉल करना पड़ेगा? बाय इंडक्टिव रीजनिंग हमें इसको रिकिंडल रिकॉल करना पड़ेगा. इफ यू आर फॉलोइंग माय ऑल द क्लासेस, देन यू विल बी एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड, बिकॉज मैंने अभी जस्ट बताया आपको, माय फर्स्ट 2 क्लासेस वेयर द फाउंडेशन क्लासेस टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस लेक्चर, right? So if you are understanding the previous lectures, then the today's class will be like a breeze to you. बहुत simple लगेगा, बहुत अच्छा लगेगा, बहुत connected feel होगा, right? So concepts are already in human mind and need to be enkindled by questioning. यहाँ पे आप inductive reasoning भी लिख सकते हैं, questioning भी लिख सकते हैं, both you can write. And morality is the knowledge of the idea of good through concepts. So in the first class, what was the Socratic problem we have discussed? What was his aim? और तब हमने एक बात बोली थी कि हम मोरालिटी पे यानी मॉरल प्रिंसिपल्स की यूनिवर्सल वैलिडिटी पे वर्क करना चाहते हैं, और वो जो यूनिवर्सल वैलिडिटी है वो ही मोरालिटी के केस में वही बन जाती है आइडिया ऑफ गुड. जब यूनिवर्सल वैलिडिटी ऑफ स्टेट और पॉलिटिकल प्रिंसिपल्स की हम बात करते हैं, तब हम जस्टिस ओरिएंटेड आइडियाज की बात कर रहे हैं. और जब हम ओवरऑल रिलीजियस आइडियाज की बात कर रहे थे यूनिवर्सल वैलिडिटी की, तब वो एटर्नल आइडियाज की बात हो रही थी. तो नॉलेज के 3 डायमेंशंस थे विच वी हैव डिस्कस्ड इन द प्रीवियस क्लासेस, एंड हियर वी आर ओनली डिस्कसिंग अबाउट द मॉरल एस्पेक्ट, बिकॉज अल्टीमेटली व्हाट इज गुड, इफ वी हैव डिसाइडेड, देन वी आर गोइंग टू एक्ट ऑन इट, एंड दे विल बिकम द action of goodness, and that will be equal to the virtue. So 2 marker virtue already seeing, you can see on the screen. 2 marker knowledge you can see on the screen. If you need to justify why virtue is knowledge according to Socrates, then you need to, after defining both, you need to write this sequence. What sequence? That virtue according to Socrates is the deepest and most basic propensity, and why this virtue is knowledge? Because both are linked. And next point, if virtue is knowledge, it can be known and consequently taught. And then know yourself brings your inner self to light. And then if the through knowledge man gains possession of himself, whereby he becomes his own master. Clear? So this is what you need to write in the 11 marker question when you study about the virtue is knowledge question. So whatever I have taught you in the class, you need to just note it down from the screen. You can pause the video, you can note it down, make your notes. I cannot transfer my wisdom to you, right? So you need to write on your own once what sir is teaching. Let's write these few words and let's make a flow chart, at least the flow of ideas. Then we will try to write down these ideas on my own language. We will try to write down. Right? Chali. So Socrates thinks that health, wealth, beauty, courage, temperance, which are customarily considered to be various forms of good, are good only if they are guided by wisdom. Whatever is considered good is only based on knowledge. Knowledge of the good will lead to goodness. बस इतना principle आप याद रखना, and this goodness is virtue. And this goodness is virtue. बस अगर ये कीवर्ड आपने पकड़ लिया तो आपके आंसर की आपको की मिल जाएगी. अब उसके बाद आप उसको कैसे एक्सपैंड करते जाते हैं वो फिर एक आर्ट है. right? The next idea which I'm trying to expand in front of you, elaborate or explain in front of you, is this idea of the unity of virtue. And in the next examination as a 7 marker question, this can pop up somewhere in the 7 markers. So what is the unity of virtue according to Socrates? ये बात आपको समझनी है. What is the unity of virtue according to Socrates? Let's try to understand this. Ethics is not just knowing good, it must be governed. What it must govern? Will, emotion, and action. Sir, what is its meaning? Its meaning is that ethics is about not just knowing what is good, it must also dictate and translate into the will to do good, emotion about goodness, and the action of that goodness. And once it will translate from will to emotion, emotion to action, ultimately it will become what? Virtue. This is what again and again he is saying. कि जब तक गुड का नॉलेज मतलब मॉरल प्रिंसिपल, जैसे आपको मैं एग्जांपल दूं तो आप दशशील या पंचशील, यम या पंच महाव्रत ऑफ जैनिज्म, पंचशील ऑफ बुद्धिज्म या यम ऑफ हिंदुइज्म, यानी क्या क्या है ये? सत्य, अहिंसा, अपरिग्रह, अस्तेय और ब्रह्मचर्य. अब ये जो मॉरल प्रिंसिपल्स हैं, ये मॉरल प्रिंसिपल्स तभी अच्छे कहलाएंगे जब आप उन्हें एक्शंस में लाएंगे, अदरवाइज दे हैव नो मीनिंग. दिस इज व्हाट ही इज ट्राइंग टू कन्वे. सो एथिक्स या मोरालिटी का मतलब सिर्फ जानना नहीं होता कि हाँ भाई व्हाट इज गुड. उसे अप्लाई करना एथिक्स कहलाता है, उसे अप्लाई करना मोरालिटी कहलाता है. बिकॉज Socrates was observing that so many people was talking about goodness but not practicing it. ध्यान से सुनिएगा मेरी बात को. Socrates observed that so many people around him was talking about goodness but not acting on it. जैसे मैं बोलूं कि हाँ भाई ब्रह्मचर्य पालन करना चाहिए, बिल्कुल करना चाहिए. अस्तेय परिग्रह करना चाहिए, बिल्कुल करना चाहिए. मुझे भी पता है करना चाहिए, यस सर बिल्कुल पता है, बट आप कर नहीं रहे. तो सोक्रेटिस ने भी ये ऑब्जर्व किया. तो सोक्रेटिस ने इसका रीजन फाइंड आउट करने की कोशिश की कि ऐसा क्यों हो रहा है. ऐसा इसलिए हो रहा है क्योंकि जो गुडनेस की बातें कर रहे हैं वो खुद से उस गुडनेस के आइडिया पे नहीं पहुंचे. Based on their own reasoning, they have just adopted or borrowed this idea from someone else, and then they are just repeating just to sound intellectual. अगर आप अपने रीजन से मॉरल आइडियाज तक पहुंचेंगे, वेल रीजनड प्रोसेस से, इंडक्टिव रीजनिंग जो कि बताई गई थी सोक्रेटिस से, तब आप बाउंड हो जाएंगे उसमें एक्ट करने के लिए. 100% ये होगा. अगर सिर्फ दूसरों का बोरो कर लेंगे आइडिया कि हाँ करना चाहिए, बिल्कुल होना चाहिए, हाँ जी मैंने सुना है, मैंने देखा है, पढ़ा है, जो भी है, बट मैंने रीजनिंग खुद से बैठ के नहीं की, तब मैं उस पर एक्ट नहीं करूंगा. इसलिए बार बार सोक्रेटिस एक बात को दोहराते हैं. वो ये बोलते हैं कि नॉलेज कॉन्सेप्ट से बनता है और कॉन्सेप्ट रीजन से बनता है. बोरोड आइडिया जिसको सिर्फ मेमोराइज कर लिया गया है, वो नॉलेज कैटेगरी में नहीं आता है सोक्रेटिस की. ये बात ध्यान रखिएगा. जैसे हम क्या बोलते हैं, हमने इंफॉर्मेशन बोरो कर ली कहीं सोशल मीडिया से, कहीं न्यूज से, वो इंफॉर्मेशन हम बोलते हैं. उसे सोक्रेटिस ने इंफॉर्मेशन वर्ड का यूज नहीं किया, सिंपली बोला कि दैट इज नॉट नॉलेज, इट इज इंफॉर्मेशन. ऐसा नहीं बोला, बट नॉट नॉलेज की कैटेगरी में डाल दिया कि इसको तो मैं नॉलेज समझता ही नहीं. क्यों? क्योंकि इट इज नॉट गोइंग टू गवर्न व्हाट? योर विल, योर इमोशन और योर एक्शन. सर बातें समझ में आ रही हैं, थोड़ी थोड़ी आ रही हैं सर बातें समझ में कि क्या बातें कर रहे थे वो 400 BC. Right? So what was the purpose? The purpose was the purification, nurturing and cultivation of the soul. Ultimately, what is the purpose of virtue? The purpose of virtue is the nurturing of the soul, cultivation of the soul. It's when you know yourself, that is the ultimate happiness. Wisdom, temperance, courage, justice and holiness are the principal forms of virtue, but all virtues stem from the healthy soul guided by reason. Right? तो सारे virtues कहाँ से आते हैं? Healthy soul से आते हैं. हेल्दी सोल क्या होती है? जो गुडनेस प्रैक्टिस करती है। गुडनेस प्रैक्टिस कौन करेगा? जो रीजन से गाइडेड होगा। यही तो बोला इन्होंने, हेल्दी सोल, रीजन, वर्च्यूज। द सेम थिंग ही हैज एक्सप्लेन्ड हियर। क्लियर? Now, what is the unity of virtue he is talking about? Let's see what he is talking about. Unity of virtue. Unity of virtue means the underlying virtue which guides all other virtue if is health of the soul. यहाँ पे is होगा is the health of the soul. So अगर आपने लाइफ में एक गोल बना लिया कि आपको अपनी सोल को हेल्दी रखना है, राइट? अपने इनर कॉन्शियस को हेल्दी रखना है, अपनी हैप्पीनेस को इंक्रीज करना है, अगर ये गोल आपने बना लिया तो लाइफ में जितने भी एक्शंस आप करेंगे वो सब वर्चुअस हो जाएंगे, गुडनेस की तरफ डायरेक्ट हो जाएंगे। बिकॉज अल्टीमेटली व्हाट यू वांट इज द प्यूरिफिकेशन, नर्चरिंग एंड द कल्टीवेशन ऑफ द सोल। तो सारी चीजें फोकस्ड हो जाएंगी, स्ट्रीमलाइन हो जाएंगी और हर एक्शन आपका वर्चुअस हो जाएगा क्योंकि इट इज डायरेक्टेड टुवर्ड्स योर गुड, टुवर्ड्स द हैप्पीनेस, टुवर्ड्स द अल्टीमेट गोल ऑफ नोइंग योरसेल्फ। And that's how you will be secure, you will achieve what? The unity of virtue. Means all virtues are directed towards the same goal, that is the health of the soul. तो अगर ये आइडिया, ये क्वेश्चन आ जाए एग्जाम में तो समझ जाइएगा, यूनिटी ऑफ वर्च्यू का मतलब है जितने भी वर्च्यूज हैं, वर्च्यू 1, वर्च्यू 2, वर्च्यू 3, वर्च्यू 4, ऑल आर डायरेक्टेड टुवर्ड्स वन गोल, दैट इज हेल्दी सोल। हेल्दी सोल, तो हेल्दी सोल की तरफ सब डायरेक्ट हो रहे हैं, इसलिए हम उसे यूनाइटेड बोल रहे हैं। तो आप समझने के लिए सिंक्रोनाइजेशन, अलाइनमेंट समझ सकते हैं, बट द वर्ड यूज्ड इज यूनिटी, राइट? ध्यान दीजिएगा इस बात का। क्लियर? So the aim of the unity of the virtue is the ultimate happiness of the individual. So ultimate happiness तब आएगी जब आप यूनिटी करेंगे। अगर आपको मैं थोड़ा पतंजलि से इसको कनेक्ट करूं तो आपको समझ में आ रहा होगा कि हम बात कर रहे हैं योग की। योगा मीन्स व्हाट? यूनिटी, यूनियन। योगा मीन्स यूनियन, तो योगा भी तो यूनियन कराता है आपके माइंड एंड बॉडी की, जो अल्टीमेटली प्रकृति है। प्रकृति किससे अलग होना चाहती है? पुरुष से। तभी तो पुरुष क्या हो जाएगा? सिद्ध हो जाएगा, समाधि में लीन हो जाएगा। यानी पूरा 8 स्टेप प्रोसेस है, यम, नियम, आसन, प्राणायाम, धारण, ध्यान, समाधि, ये जितनी भी चीजें हैं ये यूनिटी की तरफ लेके जा रही हैं। और वही यूनिटी ऑफ वर्च्यू की बात सोक्रेटिस भी कर रहे हैं 400 बीसी, और फिर पतंजलि भी बोल रहे हैं, right? Because that is based on the Sakya philosophy. We will see that in the Indian Shat Darshan. So unity of virtue means the underlying virtue which guides all other virtue. Underlying virtue या goodness क्या है? The health of the soul is the most important thing. If you believe in that, that is virtuous. The aim of the unity of the virtue is ultimate happiness of the individual. A successful functioning of the harmonious activities under the regulation of reason yields happiness. Thus, the Socratic notion of virtue as one means the self of a good man is organic unity of all its functions. So what he is saying, that virtue is one, virtue is unity. There is unity in virtue because the self of a good man is the organic unity of all its functions. How he thinks, how he eats, how he walks, everything becomes united. Every morality becomes united and synchronized only to yield happiness. And happiness is only possible with the help of the healthy soul. तो यहाँ पे मैंने एक फ्लो चार्ट दिया है जो आपके एग्जाम के लिए बहुत ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है, एंड दैट फ्लो चार्ट सेज नॉलेज मींस what is good will convert into will convert into emotion of goodness, and then emotion of goodness will convert into doing good. Action part, doing good will leads to virtue and virtue will leads to the self knowledge, एंड द सेल्फ नॉलेज के लिए जितने भी वर्च्यूज आप रखेंगे, वो फॉलो करेंगे, उनमें हमेशा एक यूनिटी रहेगी, बिकॉज मोर हेल्दी द सोल इज, मोर द सेल्फ नॉलेज विल अचीव, राइट? सो ये फ्लो चार्ट जरूर याद रखना, अपने एग्जाम में ड्रॉ करना और एक बार इसको आंसर लिखने की प्रैक्टिस करना, विच यू कैन सी ऑन द स्क्रीन, राइट? सो आज की क्लास का जो मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट टॉपिक था सॉक्रेटिक एथिक्स का, दैट इज वर्च्यू एंड नॉलेज. This I have covered in the today's class. In the next class, we will try to cover some PYQs. I will tell you how to write these answers in the examination. So please उस क्लास को जरूर देखिएगा एंड सीखिएगा कि कैसे एग्जाम में इस आंसर को अच्छे से लिखना है। सर कॉन्सेप्ट हम समझ गए, अब हम आंसर लिखना और आप सिखा दीजिए, तो बिल्कुल डेफिनेटली वी विल डिस्कस इन द क्लास। एंड टिल देन आप जितना भी कॉन्सेप्ट मैंने आज समझाने की कोशिश की है आपको, आई होप आप तक उस कॉन्सेप्ट वो कॉन्सेप्ट पहुंच पाया होगा। आप उसको रिवाइज करिएगा, राइट? वर्च्यू क्या है, नॉलेज क्या है, हाउ नॉलेज इज वर्च्यू एंड वर्च्यू इज नॉलेज, राइट? व्हाट इज यूनिटी ऑफ वर्च्यू अकॉर्डिंग टू Socrates? What are the three principal components with which the Socratean ethics is concerned? ये सारी चीजें आप एक बार रिवाइज करेंगे, इसको नोट डाउन करिए, इसके नोट्स बनाइए, and definitely we will try to practice some answer writing in the next class. That's why our whole topic will be completed in the holistic manner. ठीक है? टिल देन कीप रिवाइजिंग, कीप राइटिंग, एंड अपना गोल मैंने आपको पहले बोला है, कीप योर गोल हाई, राइट? एंड टॉपर बनने के लिए ही हमें मेहनत करनी है, आपको बस इस गोल के साथ आगे बढ़ना है, डिप्टी कलेक्टर बनना है। टिल देन टेक केयर, गुड बाय एंड जय हिंद।